Welcome back to all our listeners. It's that time of the week again, where we discuss all things FPL on the First 45 podcast, brought to you by Craig and Darren.
Hello, you're listening to the First 45 podcast. I'm Joe, and with me as always is Craig and Daz. How are you guys?
Yeah, very good, mate. Thank you. The old FPL was at a bit of a brick wall, I think, but I'm good. How are you?
No, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. How are you, Craig?
Yeah, I'm very good as well. Thanks, mate. As Daz says, the FPL's been a bit of a damp squib recently, isn't it? Particularly in the last game week where none of the big boys returned. So that was a bit disappointing.
Yeah, especially with the the expectations for Salah owners, which I know you were, Craig. I don't know if you still are, Darren, but you anticipate it when you see Bruno blank. You're seeing it when Kevin De Bruyne blanks, Sterling blanks, gets to Salah and he does nothing as well.
Pretty average week all round, I think. I think we all kind of got away with one a little bit because anyone with a half decent captain would have had a decent week, wouldn't they?
Yeah, Kane nothing as well, wasn't it? So yeah, it was nothing from anyone. Really, you can probably tell from our enthusiasm tonight.
Absolutely buzzing to talk about Game Week 29
sort of red arrows all round, I think.
At least you've got a massive game week to look forward to.
A big double to fill the void. Oh no. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Right, do you want to take us through how you did quickly, guys, before we get into the affairs for Game Week 29?
Yeah, I did okay. No, I didn't. Red arrow for me. 49k to 55k, 45 points. I mean, that is just, oh God. I always set myself a little target of trying to get to 60 points. I think most people that are into the game, eye up the sort of 60, 65 point average per game week to kind of get yourself to a point where you're going to, touch upon that top 10k. So 45 points is a massive disappointment. Fernandes captain for me. I was actually feeling really confident about that. Kane was in the earlier fixture, did nothing. So I was feeling pretty confident about Fernandes against West Ham. And then, of course, he swings a ball in from a corner and then it is McTominay gate, isn't it? Did he touch it? Did he not? I mean, it was, for my opinion, it was pretty obviously touched because he celebrated like he'd scored. But when you looked at some of the camera angles, it just goes to show how deceiving it is. I actually looked at some of them. I was like, it doesn't even look like he's touched it. But he celebrated like he'd scored. So, in my opinion, it's pretty obvious that he got a glance or something on it. But yeah, nothing lost, nothing gained really. A red arrow, but a measly one of 6k. So I'm not too fussed.
Similar for me, mate, to be honest. Very similar, 47 points, small red arrow, 36 to 38k. Same as you, Craig. I had Fernandes captain. I was kind of rubbing my hands together that afternoon when Kane blanked. I knew there'd be a fair few captains on Kane. I was looking forward to the United game, but wasn't to be, was it? One of them weeks again.
Wasn't to be. Hopefully, this very, very small blank game week excels all of our expectations.
Should we turn our attention to that then? There's obviously 4 games that we're going to be covering. We're going to try and talk to all of those games in this pod, give them a bit more attention than we would do normally. The guys are going to take us through who their standout picks are across each game, which will hopefully give you some food for thought if you are perhaps looking to use your free hit or you're looking to bring in some players for the coming game week. So perhaps if we turn our attention to the game, I believe it's on Friday first, which is Fulham versus Leeds. Darren, perhaps you want to talk to us about who you're thinking might be good standout options for that fixture.
Yeah, sure. It should be a pretty interesting game, actually. Obviously, Fulham proving themselves to be a really good team. Wasn't to be against Man City with a 3-0 loss, but as Craig spoke a lot about last week, they are a really good side defensively in particular, and Leeds haven't actually scored a goal in their last 3 or 4 games, which is a bit of a surprise considering the way they have played for the majority of the season. So I think Fulham defensively, possibly there's something to be had there. Leeds, I think, is an interesting one as well because I think whether you're free hitting or not, whatever your sort of chip strategy is, whether you've got your wild card still there, I think they're a good team to target because of the, shortly after 29, they come into the Sheffield United fixture at home in game week 30. So a big question that's kind of around Twitter at the moment is it worth taking a hit in this game week? And I think Leeds, if the player you're taking a hit for is a Leeds asset, then it kind of does make sense because of that. You've got a 2-game basis there to base it on with the Sheffield United game, whereas you look at maybe a Brighton, if you're looking to take a -4 for, say, I don't know, a Dunk or a Trossard, they run into Manchester United away in game week 30, so you need that return this week. So from a Leeds point of view, I think it's still pretty clear that Dallas, Rafinha and Bamford are the standouts. I'm currently only on Bamford, so Rafinha's probably one I'm interested in, to be honest with you. Craig, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I own Dallas, Rafinha and Bamford, and I completely agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you as well about the sort of like mini fixture run there. I mean, of course, we're talking a mini fixture run because it's only 2 game weeks, and a lot of people will be looking to wildcard around that 31 period. I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah,
that's what you're looking at.
That's my plan.
So you're absolutely right. If you don't own your 3 Leeds assets, I think you're getting quite a lot of bang for your buck if you go for them this week. Yeah, Fulham have been very tight at the back. Don't really know which way that's going to go. They could grind out a 1-0 win. That wouldn't surprise me, not even in the slightest. I know we say some of these things and they're a bit cliche from time to time, but it wouldn't surprise me if Fulham won that game with how Leeds have been playing recently. But Leeds can be explosive, so you'd rather be in on it than not, right? Just in case that something does happen. I mean, the Bamford niggle worries me a little bit. If he's not playing, I think he brings so much to that team. Like it would concern me.
Yeah.
I mean, if old Bielsa came out and said that he's not likely to start or not playing, I mean, not that I'm trying to get in your head here, Daz, but I probably wouldn't even really be thinking about Rafinha, if I'm honest. The guy's brilliant, great player, but if he's got no one to supply and work with,
it's just one of them
against Fulham.
Like, I really don't know what to make of this game because Leeds are kind of a little bit toothless at the moment, and Fulham are good defensively. It's a really difficult game to target, I think, but it's at the same time there's a lot of budget, good budget options within the game, so picking the right one is going to be difficult, I think.
Yeah, it literally will all come down to the press conferences for me at the end of the week. If we get confirmation Bamford's in, then yeah, full steam ahead for me. I would, if I was you, I would be trying to grab, one of at least Rafinha and maybe a defender as well, like a Dallas or a Melier or something like that. If you wanted to make a hit, because as you said, Daz, you're going to get your money's worth because you've got Sheffield United at home in game week 30. So it's not like you're just doing it for that one blank game week, as you said. So I completely endorse that. I would try to be lining up with at least 3 Leeds players. I would want to be in on that just in case it does explode, as obviously Leeds can. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Fulham churned out a result and perhaps Madger missed out from a tactical perspective. I didn't see any of the press conference afterwards. Others may have done. Maybe Scotty P mentioned it, that he didn't play him for a certain reason. Probably. Man City are without a doubt the best team in the league at the moment, probably the best team in Europe with the way that they're playing, outside of maybe a Bayern Munich, but I reckon they would give them a run for the money at the moment. But Madger is a player that I would look at, in terms of looking at all the teams for this game week and who's playing. He ranks 3rd of expected goals, non-penalties out of all of the players at 0.48, just behind Antonio and Kane. So that's quite good. That's basically saying he's actually playing in a fashion that would produce 1 goal every 2 games almost at 0.48. So, and I've watched him play. He's pretty exciting. He's really good at. He looks tricky. Looks difficult to defend, and he likes to get a shot off. Hence why I guess his stats are quite high there. So and being in and around Antonio and Kane is good company for me. So he'd certainly be one that I'd be looking at.
Brilliant. Right, let's move on to Saturday lunchtime game, Brighton versus Newcastle. We've obviously talked about Newcastle and the fact that we really don't fancy them as a trio. They've got Brighton, who have just turned over Southampton. I actually thought they looked pretty good for that as a Saints fan. Greg, what's your thoughts on it?
Looks to me like the standout game, if I'm honest, in terms of getting some points. Both pretty... Well, I'd say pretty drab clubs, but that would be doing a little bit of a disservice to Brighton at the moment. I think they've been playing well recently, and obviously they got that result at Anfield, which I thought was brilliant and much deserved. And they haven't really been picking up the points they should have been, because they're actually playing some pretty decent football. Like Potter's got them playing well. They just don't really have that cutting edge in the final third. And if they had, a player that can get you that 15 goals a season in the Premier League, which is, very helpful, then I think they'd be doing much better. I think they'd be around sort of mid-table. So, I call it drab because I guess of the results of recent weeks. But, Brighton got a good result in the last game. And, I think that they're going to do well here. I think Newcastle will perhaps struggle to score. And I think it's all eyes on the Brighton defence. And there's some good options there. You've got Veltman, who's had the most shots in the last 6 game weeks of any defender with 10. So, there's a bit of attacking intent down that right-hand side in the absence of Lamptey. So he'd be someone that I'm almost certainly likely to bring in.
Yeah, that bodes well, actually. That's some good stuff there on Veltman. I'm actually a Veltman owner. I brought him in last week. So, that'd be good if he can pop up with something for me. Outside of him, I think you're right, Craig, in terms of looking at Brighton defensively. I think if money was no object, which probably for many people isn't going to be this week with the wild card to come, I'd probably still go Dunk. I think with his presence from set pieces, I still think he's the standout. Personally, if you're looking for a 1 week punt, if you want a free hit, or if you're wild card in the game week 30, I really like Trossard. I think, as Joe just said, they played well against Saints, and he was centre of most of their play. He was excellent. He's a good player. 5.9, I think. As I say, if you're looking for a 1 week punt, I think he could be probably one of the standout shouts this week in what's going to be a pretty uneventful, we're kind of assuming, game week.
I like the shout of Trossard, I have to say. Yeah. He came with a lot of buzz around him, didn't he, when he came to the Premier League, coming from the Belgian league, I think, at the time, and he was, he was lighting that up, doing very well. Numbers were fantastic. It's very much a Moneyball game these days, isn't it? You look at the statistics. Is he delivering the goal contributions? Is he bringing in, the goals and the assists? And he was. And he came over and he looked quite exciting. So, I do agree with that. I like the Trossard shout. I even like a Pascal Gross, bit of a nostalgic pick from a few seasons back when he really delivered the goods at such a cut price. I think he was around 5.5, wasn't he? And he was he's weighing in most weeks, and his numbers are still standout even now in the last 6 game weeks. He's expected assists are, the most out of every player for Brighton. So, there is options there. They're just not clinical enough for me. So I think the investment is in the defence. Yeah. But if you've got a free hit, then, Gross, Trossard, even a Lallana who's looking to prove himself and obviously got a goal against Leicester, a good one at that, and actually hit the post as well, is another option. So they've got a few options there.
Same for Morpay as well, isn't it? I was really expecting him to push on this season.
Yeah, I was going to turn my attention to him. Yeah, I was going to say, this game week, would you go for a Mopay in this game week if you perhaps free hit in, or if
I was on free hit, I would. I'd definitely consider him. It's for the want of a better option, isn't it? There's not many. I mean, outside of, I guess if you're on free hit, you're likely to go Kane, Watkins, and Antonio, aren't you? Realistically, and then you might look at a Trossard then, and then maybe a Gross, maybe a Lallana, sort of third pecking order there, and then a Brighton defender, maybe the Brighton keeper. So is Morpay enough thinking? Maybe not. I think if I was on free hit, I probably wouldn't lean towards him. What about you, Dare?
Maybe in your 4-a-side picks, you might be.
Yeah, I might need him.
He's trying to throw him isn't he?
Well, he's a little bit cheaper than Watkins and Antonio. I might need that 0.5 million for the 4-a-side. I just hope I don't balls it up again this week, Daz, to be honest. I'm on the Guinness, so I think it could be an absolute circus.
If I was on a free hit, I think I'd potentially look at Morpay or Maja ahead of Watkins for me. Watkins, I don't know, he's just frustrating me a lot, Craigie.
Yeah, you really recently brought him in, haven't you, Watkins?
Yeah, I had him for most of the season previously, and he was doing nothing, and then obviously he's had a nice little spell. It's dried up a little bit over the last few weeks, but before that, I think he scored 4 or 5 goals in a good run of games. But he's a good player, but didn't you? He is frustrating. Yeah, he's frustrating. You know what it is, though. I feel like with Watkins, is I feel like he is frustrating, but he's having to do so much in that team at the moment. Yeah. Even when Grealish is there, he's doing so much. I mean, Grealish does so much. But Grealish isn't the one that was taking it by the mantle and helping by weighing in goals either. I mean, he's got a good number, but you'd expect someone of Grealish's quality, and his quality is unbelievable. I would like to be seeing someone like Grealish weighing in with, say, 12 to 15 Premier League goals a season. I don't think he's quite there yet. Just a bit wasteful. So I feel like poor old Watkins, he's having to do a lot out of nothing, and obviously Grealish hasn't been playing recently, but
Yeah, it's one of those. You're probably right. Against Spurs, would I be putting Watkins in? Yeah, maybe not. Maybe a Morpay is a good shout.
Let's we can come and talk a little bit about those boys in a few minutes' time. Moving on to the next game, we've got West Ham Arsenal, and obviously there's been talk on the pod about Aubameyang. There's been lots of praise around some of the West Ham players as well. So, Daz, perhaps you can take us through what you would be thinking in this fixture, and would you again, perhaps if you're free hitting, you're looking at premiums. Is there anyone that takes your fancy across this game, or with the news about Aubameyang or rumours and stuff, would you just be steering clear as well?
I think with regards to Aubameyang, I do expect him to play. Actually, I think it's probably just one of them little silly moments. I think the news is kind of reporting that he was maybe late for a meeting or something, and I think it's just a little slap on the wrist from Arteta. I'm expecting him back in the team, but obviously with Lacazette coming up with a goal, might push Aubameyang back out to the wing, which is maybe restricts his appeal a little bit. Similarly to the Fulham Leeds match, I kind of don't really know what to expect from this match. It's a difficult one to pinpoint, isn't it? West Ham have been brilliant this season, but was a little bit disappointed with their performance against United. They didn't really go for it. I think they played noble in midfield alongside Rice and Souček, and it was just a little bit unlike them. I'm used to seeing them go at teams, and obviously with Lingard back in the team this week, we might see a little bit more of that against Arsenal. Antonio, for me, is still the man to go for West Ham. I think he could be a good differential captain, actually, this week. Yeah, I think he's got a good record against Arsenal as well, which bodes well. But it's that obviously Kane, we're going to go on to talk about Kane in a moment. He's got to be the standout captain. He's going to be absolutely monster captain, probably one of the biggest effective ownerships we've seen all season. But yeah, if you're looking for a differential, Antonio is in my thinking, to be honest with you.
Big game player, isn't he, old Mikel?
Yeah.
He likes to do the business against the big clubs. And as you say, yeah, Spurs and Arsenal, I can see, some of the numbers there in terms of what he's churned out before. He gets goals. He gets goals against the bigger teams. So, yeah, I like your thinking there. I haven't really got a route to him this week because I own Watkins, Bamford and Kane, and, I'm not likely to play my free hit. So a little bit worried about that. Arsenal can be leaky. They might win the game, but, I don't expect West Ham not to score. I almost feel like they're going to score. And if they're going to score, you can almost bet your bottom dollar that Antonio's going to be involved. So, yeah, I'm a little bit upset that I don't really have a route there at the moment. What about you two? Do you own it, Antonio, at the moment?
No, I don't. I've got DCL. I was looking at like the obvious route for me is to something I spoke about last week, is to sell Salah and shift the funds in for Kane. But I do something. My sort of instincts are leaning me towards Antonio, but it's just one of them. Can I really go without Kane this week? It would be a bit of a brave move. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. It's almost like you have to. It's one of those ones that you might rue. You might get to the end of the game and go, why not just go with my instinct again? But you do the same move over again. I'm telling you now, you'll listen to this again in your head. If Kane goes and blanks and Antonio gets a 10-pointer,
yeah,
you'd say to yourself, would I do it again? You would, wouldn't you? And at the end of the day, it's, when you go with a decision, it's decision over result, isn't it? At the end of the day,
I've just kind of got a feeling about that Villa Spurs game. It's just not, I don't know, it's not filling me with confidence. Obviously, you spoke about Villa recently. Villa have been quite underwhelming without Grealish, and Spurs, they were shit, weren't they? Again, let's be honest, against Arsenal, they were shit.
Yeah, they were garbage.
Kane looked alright in fairness, but it's looking like Sonny's going to be out, and Bale, he didn't look best pleased, did he, being subbed off?
One of the races, was he? He looked miserable.
I don't know, I can just see it being one of them games. It's the game we've all been looking at for this blank game week 29, and
so that's what's leaning you towards the Antonios.
Possibly.
I don't own Lingard either, but I like the look of Lingard. I like the look of Aubameyang. I just don't know what to expect from this game either. It's one of those. I think with all these games this week, we don't really know what to expect. But one thing that we're probably all banking on in our minds is that Brighton will keep a clean sheet, so we're thinking there's points there, and that probably won't even happen either. We'll see a little Almiron goal or something like that. Look, from my side, West Ham, Arsenal, I still fancy a bit of Alba. I've called it, didn't I, about 4 pods ago, and he's looked better and better. And he, obviously, as you said, he got his slap on the wrist, and probably will come back into the side against West Ham. I don't think Arteta is brave enough not to play him in that game because they're so good at the moment. West Ham, they're super solid. I think he's going to need Aubameyang to stretch them a little bit, maybe peg back some of their, more attacking players. Lingard's going to need to be looked after because he's looked like an absolute revelation recently, as you said. Yeah, he looked really good, didn't he? Again, as we said before, I'm absolutely buzzing for him. What with the Euros coming up as well. Hopefully he keeps it going and proves his doubters wrong, and he actually even gets a call up because he's looked so good on the ball. Like in some instances, he's looked a little bit unplayable at times when he's just gone darting around people, and actually he's made the game look quite easy, which it's been a bit of a surprise. But yeah, so I think for me, what do I look at? Well, look, Alba is. He's fourth in the XG for non-pens as well. For, and when you take pens into consideration, I think he's right up there. But he's only just behind Maja, Antonio, and Kane as well. So, again, another one for me where I'd look at him. Am I going to move there? Basically, I'm probably going to move Salah out for Bale or Aubameyang, and we'll get onto Spurs next. But I'm just not too sure what to do about that.
Putting Bale in to edge out my little change into Bale last week.
It's not all about you, Joey. It's not all about you.
Me out. Yeah, it is.
The old host pipe enough over there.
Keep shadowing my moves.
Isn't he? All he's concerned about is making sure I don't beat him so that he doesn't have to fork out a bit of money to charity. But yeah, well, at the moment, we're neck and neck, aren't we, Joey? But I might go with Aubameyang.
Got you on transfers. So don't worry.
Yeah, so I might go Aubameyang. I'm not too sure. With Sonny out, I expect a response from Spurs. I have to say, I expect a response from Bale. But I might have to look at it a little bit more in depth because I feel like with Son out, is Bale going to be the same player? I'm not even too sure, to be honest.
I'm not keen now. I'm not massively pleased that I've got Bale now.
I'll tell you who's looked good. We're going to obviously get onto it next. I really like the look of Lucas Moura. He's looked brilliant. I don't know if you've watched much of him recently. So we'll move on, shall we?
Yeah, and obviously just before we move on, just another player I wanted to touch on was Odegaard from Arsenal. I think 5.9. Perhaps not a player we're going to be looking at for this week unless you are on free hit and you fancy a punt, but Arsenal probably with the best run-in from game week 31, so he's certainly one to watch, I think.
They have got a good run. I looked at that. Aubameyang, if you bring him in, it's one of those ones where you might want to keep hold of him for a bit. And I do like the shout of Odegaard. I think he's looked really, really good. Really good. Exactly what they would have wanted from Ozil to kind of, take the game to their opposition and link up well, neat passing, getting in some, dangerous positions, in and around the box. Yeah, he's looked good. He looks hungry.
Yeah. So let's circle back then. So I know we've touched upon Villa and Spurs a little bit in some of the games we've just talked about. Craig, perhaps you want to talk us through this fixture, which looks probably eye-watering on paper, but I guess there's also a risk here that Emi Martinez will just steal all the plaudits, take his 9 or 10 points, and give everybody else lovely blanks to work with.
Well, can you imagine if this fixture wasn't going ahead? This is the one that they've chalked in, isn't it? Can you imagine? Imagine a game week of Fulham, Leeds, Brighton, Newcastle, West Ham, Arsenal. So, beggars can't be choosers. Even if this game doesn't really live up to expectations, it's probably given us all another 4 or so players, and I think we would all be in dire straits if this game hadn't been penned in. So, yeah, I'm not too sure what to make of it, to be honest. What team are we going to get from Villa? Villa have looked at points this season supreme, but they've looked that supreme Villa when they've had Grealish in the main, right? They haven't really looked like that team of late, but they've been doing okay, ticking along in terms of a defensive output and not shipping in too many goals. But yeah, just it's tough for them at the moment. I'm not too sure. I don't know what we're going to get. We need a response from, as Daz said, Spurs were horrific against Arsenal. It was terrible display from them. So I'm really not too sure. But with Sonny out, in my opinion, Bale's a shoo-in. So I think he's definitely going to start. There's obviously concern because he's been getting, subbed off and he's not really been getting beyond the 70-minute mark. But for me, I think he's almost certainly going to start. It'd be interesting to see, what team they field in the Europa League this week. But I think Bale will start. with Son out, does that lessen Bale's appeal? Possibly. I quite like Reguilon as well. Good attacking defender. With Villa not performing very well at the moment, with Grealish out, I think he's a good shout as well. I think he's going to get massively overlooked this week. I don't think many people will be going for him if they're not on free hit. Free hitters might whack him in, but outside of that, I don't think people are going to be moving to him. I could almost see Villa not scoring against Spurs, and I can see it maybe being a 1-0 or a 0-0 ball fest potentially. But Kane is the standout, and I most certainly will be captaining Kane. I'm not going to dare risk not doing that.
I think Spurs are in a sort of similar position in our thinking with Leeds in terms of they've got the nice fixture in 30 as well. So it's, if you are looking to make a hit, then again, Spurs are a team certainly to look at. I'm looking at Bale as well. I think the nostalgic side of it for me, as I spoke about last week, that hat-trick at Villa Park on Boxing Day all them years ago. I'm kind of wanting back in my team for this, but I'm not sure I can get to Bale. If I do go to Spurs, it's almost certainly going to be Kane, but something to think about there, really. Villa, as I spoke about earlier again, they have been a little bit underwhelming recently. I think their season's kind of fizzling out. They were kind of making a few sort of noises that they could push for a European spot, but I think they're going to end up around mid-table, personally. Not too much more to add on that. I think it's just a case of gritting our teeth this week and hoping for the best, isn't it, with those 4 fixtures?
Yeah. Definitely, and the one safe haven here is that most people are going to captain Kane. It's going to take a very brave person to stick the old armband on an Antonio or a Lingard or Aubameyang, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yep, that's very true.
Might see a couple of Bale captains. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. And to be honest, Bale has the pedigree. I mean, he's world class. Because he hasn't quite got to the heights that he's performed at, a few years ago just yet. I mean, we say that in the last couple of weeks he's been fantastic. And of course, he's been subbed off last game week after it not really working. But Arsenal are a sort of reformed outfit, so don't take any credit away from them. Arteta got them playing very well and kind of stifled Spurs a bit. I kind of see a bit of a free-flowing game. So I might be contradicting myself a little bit, saying I'm not really too sure it's going to go and I'm not too enthused about it, but it could be one of those end-to-end games, couldn't it? So, Bale, Kane captain for me. But
could have goals, or it could be another 0-0, right?
Yeah, you just don't know. I think there's a lot to be said at the moment for just a lack of enthusiasm from the football players in general. So going away from just talking about these fixtures, at the moment, in my opinion, these players are feeling it like how we're feeling it, even as fans, right? We're watching, and there's just so many games. It's absolutely saturated at the moment. It's drawn out game weeks. There's no crowds. There's no one to spur them on. There's obviously teams that are just in limbo. Liverpool at the moment struggling to just, really get things going. Obviously, they've had a couple of good results the last 2 games, but you just look at it and I just can't see a lot of passion out there.
Yeah, I tend to agree, actually.
So from that point, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to predict, really hard. So like I said, that's why, going to your point, is this going to be a 0-0 or a goal fest? Well, we don't really know, because we just don't know what's going to happen, because I guess we haven't got some of the normalities that we would see in a normal season where, it's not been pegged back by COVID. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
I think it's one of those game weeks where it's really not, I think particularly if you captain Kane, it's not going to make or break your season. It's just a case of getting through it. I think from what I gather, there's not actually many people who are even going to play the free hit. The people that have held the free hit have kind of been working towards this game week. I don't see big movement this week personally. What about you guys?
I agree.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I got a feeling you could end up with a very flat game week, but to be honest, I could be totally wrong. We could be sat here next or in 2 weeks' time talking about someone's hat trick or something big that's happened like that, and if you catch it, it's great, but it's going to be one of those where I think if you don't lose too much ground, you shouldn't be concerned. I think that's okay if you drop a few points on people in your mini leagues or in your overall rank. I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. But if you do make ground on people, it's a lovely little win, I think.
I think actually something that I've kind of picked up on over the last few weeks leading up to this game week is I really think these blank game weeks are really great game weeks to play the free hit, because one of the big arguments against playing it for this week, for example, was, we can, I can get 9 players without playing my free hit, or, it's 4 shit games. You know, do I really want to? It's not an aggressive play, which, you know, that's valid. I get that, but when you're building up to these games, you're kind of missing out on the players in the weeks building up to them. For example, last week, Leicester home to Sheffield United, someone like Ian Atcho, he would have been in our thinking. But because we're building up to this blank game week, focusing all our attention on players from Brighton and Fulham and, you know, all these sort of blank game week teams that we wouldn't necessarily be looking at otherwise, I think all your attention can be over focused on the blanks. Whereas, you know, if you've got that free hit there, you can just focus as you normally would in and around the blank game week. And for me, that's something that I'm going to take forward to next season.
It's a great point, mate. Really good point, I think. And that's why having those chips are very valuable, because as you said, you're missing out on good opportunities. I think the biggest one for me, outside of the Vardy and Iheanacho performance last game week, which, as you said, you know, you jump on that with how Sheffield United have been playing, but also the fact that they just lost their manager. I mean, it's an obvious look at, isn't it? And as you said, you probably lost out 10, 15 points there. But the other one for me is Chelsea. You know, we've just been sleeping on them. I mean, they're just turning it over week in, week out. We talked about Rudiger on like our third pod. I can't even remember when we did, but it was like 6-7 game weeks ago. And again, the man's, you know, amassed a sizable amount of points at 4.4 million. I haven't made the move because, of course, we know we've known this is on the horizon. So I completely agree with you, and I own the free hit as well, right? I've still got the free hit chip, so you know I think it's one to think over, and as you said, take into next season.
I'm going to move us on now to our community questions. Every week we take some questions on from the FPL community, try and give you some insight from Craig and Daz on some of the FPL dilemmas or challenges or issues or conundrums you might be facing. So we've got a couple here. We're going to whiz through them. First one's from CG, that's FPL CG, and they've asked, would you play Emi Martinez or Areola in this coming game week? I've got a feeling that you might even own I think you might own Areola, Daz, and you might own Emi Martinez, Craig. So you might have different views on this one, and perhaps I can turn my attention to Darren first on that one. You can give us your thoughts on that.
That's a real coin flip for me, Joey, to be honest. Areola probably with the nicer fixture, but Martinez with the kind of history over the season of being the standout goalkeeper. Probably if you've owned him for long periods, your loyalty's probably going to stick with Martinez there. But I really don't think there's a right or wrong there. It might come down to who else you've got on your side. For example, if you've got Kane and Bale, you might want to go with Areola to kind of go all in with the more aggressive approach rather than playing your Kane and Bale against Martinez in the same side, if you get what I mean there. But yeah, like I say, it's difficult call, that one.
If I had to get you to get off the fence, which one would you
I'll go Areola. Yeah.
Cool.
I agree with that. I'm Martinez owner. You know, we're backing Kane. If you're backing Kane, you're backing Kane to score, right? So if I owned both, I'd be going Areola. You know, at the end of the day, Leeds could score and do well. I want my Leeds assets to do well as well, but I think there's less chance in terms of if it was broken down to percentages of Leeds delivering versus, you know, Tottenham's ability to get goals with Kane and Bale in the team. So yeah, I'd be playing Areola. I don't even think it's a coin toss, yes, but if I had both of them, I think, you know, the fact that I'm backing Kane captain, it's Areola for me.
Moving on, we've got Lee Godfrey, who's asked, I'm thinking Brighton defence is possibly the best shout this week. Would you agree, Craig? I know we've obviously had a little chat about Brighton so far on the pod, but would you agree they're the strongest defensive shout this week?
Yeah, I completely agree with Lee. I think absolutely standout pick with regards to the defence. You know, if anything, they're the standout game for me, where we think we all know that the result will be a Brighton win. You know, Brighton, as we've all talked about, came off a really good win against Southampton. They played very well. They finally got a couple of goals where they'd lacked that in the past. I don't see it being massively high scoring, but do I see a clean sheet? I do. And that probably means that there won't be one, right? Because we can't predict anything in this game. But yeah, it always backfires. But, you know, I would be keen to, if I could, I'd likely own, you know, a couple of defensive assets, whether that be covering with the goalkeeper and a defender or two defenders. I like the shout of Duncan Veltman as well.
Any other thoughts on that?
No, nothing really to add on that, mate. I think the short answer is probably just yes. I agree. Brighton are probably the defensive team to target.
We got one more question which is from FPL Navigator or Mark. So that's FPL_Navigator. They've asked, should we focus more about using transfers for game week 30 and 31? Game week 29, only 4 fixtures. So are there actually any points to collect? Do you want to give us some thoughts on that one, Darren? Bit of a head scratcher, that one, possibly.
Yeah, I think now that we're at 29, the transfers for this week should be focused on 29 for me. I think, the points are there to be had, aren't they? There might not be massive points on offer, but now that we're here, if it's a case of having 0 points from a player that's not playing, or the chance to get a minimum of 2, I think your free transfers at least should go into 29.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, Daz. I sort of agree. Focus on the here and now. I think there's a lot to be said if you have got 2 free transfers though, and maybe this is what Mark was getting at, and let's say he's got a team of 8 assets. I think that's probably okay. You could probably get away with playing 1 and then maybe rolling 1 to have 2 for 30. And the only reason I say that is because the fixtures are, very, very mouthwatering for a few teams. You've got Chelsea at home to West Brom. Now, I'd love to be jumping on that pre-wildcard if I'm not wildcarding in 30. As you already pointed out, Daz, you've got Aston Villa at home to Fulham. You've got Leeds at home to Sheffield United. I mean, there's 3, teams there that are playing at home to clubs where you'd expect something to happen. So I kind of understand that.
Sorry to interrupt you, mate. I guess I'm kind of answering the question as somebody who is looking to wildcard shortly after as well. So maybe it's a little bit different for Mark. If he's got no wildcard there, then okay, it might be worth starting to think about game week 30 and 31.
It's a good point. Yeah. It is a good point. Yeah, if you haven't got the wildcard, potentially, yes, absolutely.
Right, I'm going to move us on to our charity 4-a-side competition. Details about it in lots of other pods, but the guys are taking each other on, and the FPL community. And there's at least £100 at stake, which the loser will be handing over to mine charity. If the community happen to beat Darren and Craig as well, they're going to be handing over an extra £50 each. So great cause that we're playing for here. And this week we are taking on the FPL Viper. So this is Henry. He's actually in our mini league and he's second in it at the moment. He's just picked out of second spot. So this is interesting to see Henry's picks on this, because it might give us a little indication as to what he might be thinking for game week 29. So let's run the tape and listen to Henry's team for the week.
Yes, guys, it is FPL Viper here, occasionally known by my real name, Henry Dean. So it is a pleasure to be competing against Craig and Darren in game week 29 of the Mine Charity 4-a-side tournament. Fantastic cause, and I'm delighted to be representing the FPL community. So a quick fun fact that nobody knows about me. The Viper in my Twitter handle actually stems from my love of pro wrestling. Some of you may know the wrestler Randy Orton. Well, his nickname has been the Viper over the years. And the rest, as they say, is history. So that is the little backstory of my Twitter handle. Moving on to the business side of things and my 4 selections for this week. Starting off in net, and I've gone for Sanchez from Brighton Hove Albion. He currently costs 4.5 million, and the reasoning behind this one is very simple. I have to say I think Brighton have the best chance of picking up a clean sheet. We only have 8 teams competing, and the less said about Steve Bruce's Newcastle in attack this season, the better. So moving on to defence, and I have gone for Aaron Cresswell from West Ham United. He currently costs 5.9 million, and he's having a brilliant season, storming down that left flank. I think he's just hit double-figure assists, so he really is one of the key creative outlets for the Hammers this season, and he offers returns at both ends of the pitch. Fingers crossed he can pick one of those up against the Gunners, who incidentally are my own team. Moving on to midfield, and I have selected Rafinha from Leeds. He currently costs 5.6 million. I've actually owned this guy for around 4 to 6 weeks in FPL, and he's been such a fun asset to own. Hasn't necessarily picked up the points that I hoped for, but the underlying statistics remain incredible, and I am hopeful that this is the game we can convert those impressive statistics into FPL points. And finally, up top, I have gone for Neil Maupay. So again, another Brighton asset. He costs 6.1 million. And I really do hope that Brighton can put Newcastle to the sword this week. And let's hope Maupay can get fully stuck in and amongst the goals. So those are my 4 selections, the total cost of which is 22.1 million. So well within the 25 million budget. I want to wish you boys the very best of luck this week. I do feel like you're going to need it because that is a rather dangerous quartet that I have selected. But jokes aside, wishing you the very best for the game week and indeed for the remainder of the season. Thank you very much for having me on again.
Good team there from Henry, I think. You know, got a bit of Brighton coverage there with Sanchez at the back. I really like Cresswell pick this week. You know, I know they're playing Arsenal, but that man's been on fire this season. You know, he's like the set-piece king, isn't he, for West Ham? So, yeah, I like that. More play in there we talked about earlier. What are you thinking, Daz? Good team, that, isn't it?
I agree, mate. Good team, man. As Joe said, it's good to get a bit of insight from a mini-league competitor. So, yeah, good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe he's eyeing up Cresswell exactly for this game week. You know, we might have to try and block him out.
He's got Soufal, so I think that's probably the angle he's looked at there. So maybe upgraded a little bit on his own team there.
You never know. Well, we're all up there with him, aren't we? All 4 of us are like, you know, within perhaps 20 points of each other, aren't we? I know Henry's right out there as well. So fair play, Henry.
So, Daz, do you want to take us through the latest standings in the 4-a-side, so we can decide who is going to be picking first, and then we can rattle through our picks for the week?
Yeah, sure. So it's still pretty close, actually. I'm on 207 in the lead, Community closely behind 201, and Craig with 190.
Not even broke the 200 yet, have I? Look at that lagging behind after a.
The thing is, mate, as we spoke
spoke
about earlier, you know, we've got different teams to each other, so there's plenty of points to be had each week.
Yes,
there's big
absolutely.
differentials there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just a reminder, everyone, the community basically get the pick of the bunch, and of course, and Darren and I do a little draft, which we're obviously about to do now, which is always providing us giggles. Let's go for it.
Let's see how this
one's
going to pan out this
one first.
Yeah, you can rattle off your pick.
Right, okay, I'm not going to delay. I'm just going to go for it. I don't even know if it's the right way to go, but I am going to go for Gareth Bale, 9.6 million. Yeah.
Wowza, I wasn't expecting that.
I know, that means I'm going to be budget all round.
Dusted the wallet off.
He's going to be getting a Poundland after that.
I tried to get Kane in, but it's not possible. It's not. I could have got Kane in if I put Bissouma in midfield.
That'd have been interesting, to be fair. Well, I'm going to go Antonio, 6.6.
Nice. Okay, so I'm going to go for Manaman Joel Veltman.
Veltman, yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Nice.
Had him on my shortlist, Craig. You've done me there. Okay, so goalkeeper for me, I'm going to go for Sanchez. Bit of Brighton coverage.
Got the calculator out. I am going to go for... I don't think I've got much other choice than to go for Areola.
Yeah, nice. So I don't really need to worry about budget too much with my first 2 picks in the end, so I'm going to go for Dunk.
Okay. Last pick for me then, I'm going to go for Manaman Malpe. See what happens there.
Malpe, yeah. Okay, and I'm on Rafinha.
Yeah. Rafinha was the standout really for me if I didn't do Bale, obviously.
I had Trossard.
Tried to be a bit clever.
I had Trossard written down as well, but I think...
Nah, Rafinha's got to be in it.
Yeah, okay, Rafinha.
I've tried to be cute there, and I with Bale, let's be honest.
I like it, mate. I like it. It's a bit of a different play.
I did try and go for Kane. I did try and go for him, but as I said, it was going to be a Bissouma in midfield, so I'm not sure about that.
Right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Have a great game week in game week 29. And my alarm's
Look at that, 9 o'clock. He has got
time
some
for me
money.
to go. Full-time whistle. Yeah, I'm off skis.
In
Have a great
lockdown,
game week.
but he's got somewhere to be.
Yeah, exactly. Got my duties.
Yes.
And we'll see you after the international break. So have a good game.
Get through this game week. Come on.
Everybody.